Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. My husband's co-workers think I'm his sister. Now I'm confronting him about why he's been purposefully lying to them. My husband, I'll call him Josh. My husband and I have been together for 6 years and married for 4. We don't have kids, and we have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We are both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often. I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them or go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyway, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after work drinks when a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough and asked me my name. I think I must have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, "I'm Jake, I work with Josh." I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere. But we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look at his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and I struggled to end the conversation, but he just kept talking at me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep. While he was talking, he said something like, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time, I was like, but I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends, and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided not to tell my husband that I had met his coworker Jake, not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog Monty. He's a mix of a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise. I was on my way to my regular cuff, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front was an older man. He got his coffee, turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog. He said, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him, apparently, so I guessed that the guy was another colleague of Yas because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, "Aren't you a good sister walking the dog for him?" I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first. I stumbled on my words and just said, "It's my dog." I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Yas' wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee. He left. I seriously don't know what to do because what the heck do I even ask my husband about this? Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake that he doesn't talk about me much at work and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair. But the thought that he has been telling his co-workers that I'm his sister and, evidently, they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she jumped straight to time to plot his downfall because she's my ride or die. I love her, but I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and rambly post, but I would really appreciate any and all advice. First, I just want to clear up. I've seen a lot of people suggesting I have crippling social anxiety or am severely introverted, which I suppose you could glean from the way I explained what happened. But I'm not. I meant that I'm slightly introverted and that I'm not the most eager to meet lots of new people, at once especially a bunch of finance bros whose weekends consist of unending sports bar beers where I assume I would be mansplained everything until my ears bleed. Probably a negative assumption, but I'm sure some of you know what I mean. I suppose you could say that I'm confrontation averse and that I'm quite laid back and prefer to keep a conversation easy and positive. I don't like it when things are awkward, and correcting people when they misrecognize me is one of those things. But I'm not terrified of confrontation. Also, my husband and I do share some mutual friends. I didn't explain that well, but our lives are not entirely separate. The way he acts towards me around our mutual friends is extremely affectionate and normal. It is only his work friends that I have never interacted with. I've also seen some people suggest that what is going on is equivalent to my husband beating me and me hopelessly wondering whether I should break up with him, or that I'm stupid for thinking my relationship was healthy when it clearly isn't. Like, damn, cut me some slack. I'm a real person, and this is an entirely alien and bizarre situation for me. My first reaction wasn't to assume the worst, but I do appreciate that you all have made me certain that it is a big deal. I guess I needed confirmation that the things that happened are enough proof that Josh has been purposefully lying and they weren't just mix-ups. I'm going to talk to him today and ask him directly why he's telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. I followed the advice of writing my points down so that they don't get lost if I get emotional. Lol. I will do my best not to let him slither out of it, and I hope he has some proof that his colleagues know I'm his wife. I know that's not the theatrical confrontation you guys were hoping for, but it's a Saturday, and I can't wait. Update 1? I'll just get right into it. On Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than my husband. He was very hungover, so he was like a sleeping rock. But you guys will be proud of me because I followed some advice and decided to look through his phone properly while he was sleeping. I've been on his phone so often just pissing around on it that I had never thought to check anything very deeply. I know his passcode by heart. I checked all the expected things like Instagrams, Facebook Messenger, iMessage, etc. My investigation, I didn't find anything that set off alarm bells to me, but I know from some comments that people who are cheating are good at covering their tracks and hiding messages, so I kept looking around. I saw he had a folder called Work, so I looked in there. He had a couple of Microsoft apps, Outlook Authenticator, Onenote, etc. But he also had Miss Teams. So I opened it up and had a look around. It did feel like I might have been breaking laws looking at his work. I was already upset to see that he had a bunch of one-on-one chats with several female co-workers, which at first glance is obviously not an issue because everyone works with people of the opposite gender and is required to communicate with them. But a couple of them were vaguely flirty. Nothing I would call egregious, but there would be the occasional message between them with some playful innuendo or a wink emoji. These upset me obviously, and they did send me into a bit of a spiral, but I didn't find anything that suggested he was having an outright affair with any of them. Still, I followed someone's suggestion of screenshotting the messages and airdropping them to myself. I still wanted some evidence of the lie, though some proof of Josh telling someone that I was his sister directly. A commenter suggested that I go through his messages and search for the keyword sister. I wanted to reply to your comment and say thank you for the idea, but the post was locked, so I couldn't. But thank you. I searched for sis on his Ms. Teams hoping to find results for both sister and sis. A bunch of messages from all hands group chats or one-on-one chats came up from other people all unrelated and about their own sisters or whatever. But then I found a direct message to someone named Katie that read I didn't tell her anything about my sister, and I just wanted to keep it that way. I'm not ready for that yet. This hit me like a freight train. I quickly looked at the date. It was from the same day. I ran into Jake at the bar, and it was right after that encounter. I took a screenshot and saved it heart pounding. I couldn't shake that sick feeling in my stomach. I just wanted to be sick. I knew that I was going to confront him today. Confrontation. Yesterday morning I took him to brunch at a cute little cafe where we went on our first date. He was still hungover but managed to eat a bit. I felt like I was going to vomit the whole time. I was shaking in my seat, and he kept looking at me like I was crazy. At one point, he asked if I was okay and if I wanted to go home, but after a couple of mimosas, I felt a little braver, and I decided to go for it. I told him I wanted to talk about something serious, and I asked him point blank why he had been telling people that I was his sister. He froze for a second, and then his eyes went wide. He kept staring at me like I was insane, like he had no idea what I was talking about. He said, "What? Who told you that?" At this point, I showed him the screenshot of the message I found on his Ms. Teams. He got really quiet and still. I was shaking, and I just waited. I wanted him to say something to explain himself, but he just stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. Then he said, "Okay, you caught me. I don't know how to explain this, but—" I felt my stomach drop. I said, "Complicated. How could you lie to me like this? What are you even talking about?" He started to stutter and said he hadn't meant for it to go this far. He had just wanted to keep things easy for his colleagues, since they kept asking about me. He didn't know how to explain our relationship to them, and he thought calling me his sister would be easier. He thought I would understand. I was still shaking, and I felt like I couldn't process this information. I said, "But you have pictures of me on your phone. Your colleagues have seen me. How did you think this would go? You didn't think they would ever meet me." He said he didn't know, but it was hard for him to talk about me with them. He said he loves me and he didn't want it to feel awkward if I showed up at the office one day or if I went to a work function. He said he was sorry and that he thought I would understand. At this point, I was overwhelmed with anger and confusion, but I tried to keep my voice steady. I said I didn't know how to feel about this and that it made me feel really betrayed. I told him that I felt like I didn't know him anymore and that it was all incredibly weird. He started to apologize again, saying he was stupid and that it was a dumb mistake. I left the cafe in tears and went home. I feel like I can't think straight, and I'm so upset. Update 2. I've spent the last couple of days processing everything, and it's been a whirlwind of emotions. After the brunch confrontation, I returned home feeling completely drained. I sat in silence, grappling with the enormity of what Josh had admitted. His explanation that he wanted to keep things easy for his colleagues felt so insufficient. It's hard to reconcile how someone I love could construct such a significant lie about our relationship. That afternoon, I texted a few close friends. They've been incredibly supportive, offering a listening ear and validating my feelings of betrayal and confusion. I shared everything with them, from my initial suspicions to the painful confrontation. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to anger, and it helped me realize that I'm not alone in this. Some suggested couples therapy, which I'm considering. It might provide a structured space for us to unpack this issue and help rebuild trust if we choose to move forward. I also spent time reflecting on our relationship as a whole. We've always had a strong bond, and I've cherished the love and understanding we've built over the years. But this feels like a major crack in that foundation. I kept asking myself why he felt the need to lie in the first place. Was he embarrassed? Did he think I wouldn't be accepted by his colleagues? The uncertainty makes it all the more difficult to understand his motives. The next day, I decided to take a break from social media and focus on self-care. I went for long walks, read some books, and tried to clear my mind. I found it helpful to journal my thoughts, as writing them down made the chaos in my head feel more manageable. I wrote about the good times we've shared, but I also confronted the painful reality of what's happened. Eventually, I felt ready to respond to Josh. I texted him, asking for a calm conversation where we could both express our feelings honestly. I told him I needed clarity on why he made this choice and what he envisions for our future. I emphasized that I love him, but that trust has been deeply shaken. He replied quickly, expressing his remorse and eagerness to talk. We agreed to meet at a quiet park somewhere neutral, where we could have an uninterrupted conversation. I still feel nervous about this meeting. I want to articulate my feelings without being overly emotional, but I also don't want to bottle everything up. As I prepare for this conversation, I keep reminding myself that I deserve honesty and respect. I know that if we are going to work through this, it has to start with openness. I hope he can explain not just the what, but the why behind his actions. This is a critical moment for both of us, and I want to ensure that whatever decision we make going forward is based on a shared understanding. I'll keep you all updated after our conversation. For now, I'm focusing on grounding myself. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.